Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. Everything you see here today is for sale. Reach out to me. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details. Even if you just want extra photos or details of accessories and boxes, I've got all of that. Plus, I'm always looking to add inventory, so if you want to sell or trade a watch, we are always buying. We pay cash, we pay fast, no upper limit on value paid. We are the #1 watch buyer in the pre-owned space. That's how we get great watches to sell. To buy, trade, or sell, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Okay, let's jump straight in with an unusual watch of rare appeal. This is a model that launched just in the last year for 2021, the Tudor Black Bay 58 in bronze. Now, there was a previous Black Bay in bronze, but it was a 43mm watch that launched back in 2016, and it was a watch that featured both a larger case and a strap exclusively. So this watch is the Black Bay 58, the case size that was launched in 2018. It's 39mm in diameter. It's a better match for the historic references to which it refers than the larger cases. Now, pop open the clasp, and it's a good-looking clasp. And the watch wears well. It's substantial, make no mistake. It's hefty, and you do feel it. It's comparable to steel, but the look is, should we say, a little bit more evocative. The bronze, of course, not historically a Rolex Tudor material, but it has maritime associations and historic associations. The timepiece, of course, beautifully low slung on the wrist. One of the great things about the 58 is that it uses a unique movement series, the 5400, that are thinner than the in-house 5600. These are still in-house calibers, still 70-hour power reserve, still chronometer, silicone hairspring, all of that good stuff. But again, the watch is thinner because this movement is only 4.99mm thick compared to 6.5 for a standard Tudor in-house automatic. Now, it is an easy watch to wear and a comfortable watch to wear. You could see inside the clasp, there's adjustment built in. And you can actually use, let me just show you this. You can use your tools to restation the anchoring point of the bracelet. Although it has the look of a vintage rivet bracelet, you can see it's constructed in modern fashion with removable links fixed in place by screws. And of course, the watch features a unidirectional rotating dive-style bezel, and it's a great timing instrument, whether you're diving or not. We have Snowflake, that is Tudor Submariner Snowflake, style hands, and the watch has plenty of lume. As you can see, the bezel pearl is well lumed, as are the numerals, the indices, and the hands. A great-looking watch, a 200-meter diver, and a wonderful piece that's a little bit offbeat and wonderful for it. Truly a beautiful rendition of a gold-colored metal, so you don't have to wear gold to get the same standout effect. Now, completely different approach taken by Piguet of Cotofe. As you can see, the Polo S launched in 2016, 9.5mm thick, 42mm in diameter, and stainless steel. It's 100 meters water resistant rating. There were two different versions at launch, a chronograph and an automatic, and then the automatic that you see here is the blue dial version. There was also a gray available. Plenty of luminescence, and the watch seems like a better and better buy each year as this integrated bracelet steel sports watch category gets ever more expensive. We're beginning to realize just how good these were right out of the gate. They are super flat, they're flush, they're comfortable, they're relatively short across the wrist. They wear well on a strap or bracelet, and you can see even on the bracelet, my 16cm circumference wrist wearing this one well. It'll fit underneath the cuff, absolutely no issues there. The bracelet is handsome with polished primaries and then satinated intermediate links, double deployant clasp, twin trigger release, and then inside what they call a Piaget 1100P. Now, this is, of course, derived from the Cartier MC 1904, which is to say it is a solid luxury automatic mechanical movement. Twin barrels, 50-hour power reserve, attractive, albeit mostly machine applied finishing. You can see that this is to a higher standard than you find in the Cartier. The Cartier doesn't have blued screws, doesn't have bevels of this quality. It doesn't have the two-tone contrast between the rhodium on the bridges and the darker nickel anthracite on the rotor itself. There's a high-quality balance used. It's a 4 Hz beat rate. It has a quick set as well as a hacking seconds function. And for good measure, it's modified with a lovely polished eccentric screw fine adjustment regulator. And because it uses Etikron for its primary adjustment and regulation, it can be adjusted quite precisely. So a really good looking watch, and you can see that the dial has a lovely luminescence to it. I don't mean the Luminova. I mean, it has a wonderful glow in the light, a handsome, almost iridescent blue metallic, truly appealing, and this nice match between the lateral striations of the dial and then the lateral brushing of the bezel itself. It's a good-looking watch all around with superb attention to detail, including a little kerf under the crown so you can dig your nail in for more easily setting the time and withdrawing the crown. I like that piece a lot. Now we're going to declare independence, the Declaration of Independence. Not independence, but independence, with independent watchmaking here. The watch that won the 2004 GPHG Aiguille d'Or for the best watch of the year at the Oscars of Watchmaking. 40 millimeters in diameter in platinum with a white gold dial. This is the FP Journe Tourbillon Souverain. As you can see, it is a 1-minute tourbillon. It is a deadbeat second. It is a power reserve, 42 hours. And by the way, it's a marine chronometer style power reserve. So as you wind it, it moves backwards. We have a black polished steel bezel framing the tourbillon hours, minutes, and seconds. And then the dial itself is not just white gold in color. It is a solid disc of white gold. As you can see, remontoire d'égalité avec seconde morte. You might wonder, where is the remontoire? Well, it's on the back. Here it is, a constant force device. It's a linear titanium spring. You have your mainspring barrel. For the first 28 hours of power reserve, the barrel transfers its energy to the spring transfers the energy to the escapement, which maintains constant amplitude of the balance, so it can be adjusted very precisely and then keep time very precisely. There are a couple other refinements here you don't typically find on Journe watches, including a free-sprung architecture with an overcoil hairspring. That overcoil is there to help the watch keep excellent time in any physical position. We also have a higher standard of finish than you typically find on Journe watches. The entire tourbillon carriage is executed to a higher level with black polishing on its top and anglage on its edge. We also have a continuously rounded half bridge for the upper mount of the tourbillon cage, and then you flip it all over and you can see the watch features a full black polished mechanism underpinning the remontoire constant force device. Bridges and plates are made of solid 18-karat gold, and as you can see, impressively finished because it is not easy to finish gold. We have a white gold dial, a platinum case, and a rose gold movement. So this watch is triple precious metal, and it has an upgrade rarely found on Journe watches in the form of a deployant clasp. Most Journe watches, even flagship complications, will include only a pin buckle. You can see here, Journe has equipped this one, optionally, with a white gold folding clasp. Make no mistake, the case itself is platinum. We'll throw it on my wrist, and you can see it's beautifully flat. It's only 48 millimeters from lug to lug. It fits easily. This is a great watch, even if your wrist is as small as 14 centimeters circumference. A woman could definitely wear it, although it's probably intended as a man's watch. If you want something that'll wear well on an even smaller wrist, we're going to go vintage here. We're going to stick with Journe. We're going to stick with platinum and white gold dials, but now we have the 38 millimeter case size, and this is the Chronometer à Résonance, a timepiece originally launched in its initial version in 2000. It was a world premiere combining the long-established resonance phenomenon whereby metronomes and pendulums will synchronize to each other in close proximity, but Journe executed this concept using escapements and balances, and that's what we have here. You can see this is one of the French-made Eleanor cases from the early days, 1999 to 2008 with FP Journe. You have the maker's mark of Eleanor and then the French hallmarks. Then you can see we also have on here the Swiss hallmarks, and the watch uses a brass movement. This is brass movement FP Journe. Yes, it's true. Later on, rose gold would be used, but brass is scarcer. There are a few of them, which is why brass movement Journes are worth more. And there are some aesthetic elements too, as the Resonance 2 featured a barrel bridge that shows only the pivots for the arbors, whereas the original Resonance, which we have here, featured a larger, more visible set of underlying mechanisms. We have the ratchet wheels with individual clicks, which is quite appealing. You can see that there's anglage on the edge of the bridges, twin drivetrains, two barrels, two drivetrains, two escapements, two balances. There's actually no link between them. Resonance couples them together, and they beat in opposition, so if one errs by slowing down, the other will speed it up. That's how they self-reinforce, and over 24 hours, they should never diverge by more than 5 seconds from each other. Now, it is a dual-time watch. You can set both sides independently if you wish to use it that way, but just remember, that's not its primary purpose. Resonance is the purpose of the two independent halves. Now, because it takes about 7 to 10 minutes for resonance to gain purchase on the watch movement, the two sides will couple after about 8, 9, 10 minutes, and sometimes the seconds hands aren't synchronized, so we have a flyback mechanism so you can synchronize those for aesthetics. Now, I mentioned that the 40 was a decent fit for a woman's wrist, or for a man with tastes in smaller watches, but the discontinued 38mm case size, which was discontinued after 2015, that really does look even better on my smallish wrist. So what's discontinued with this watch? A lot. The 38mm case size is discontinued. The French-made Eleanor case is discontinued. The brass caliber, discontinued. The Resonance 1 with the symmetrical dial and the brass caliber, discontinued. And I should mention, after about mid-2005, they stopped stamping the case's year of manufacture on the reverse of the watch. So you can see this one's 04. So a lot of the way we were, not very much that is consistent with modern Journe watches, which is why I often refer to these early 2000s Journe watches as vintage, because they are quite distinct from the product the company makes today. Our Declaration of Independence continues with this Debetun DB28Z, or zirconium, scratch-resistant zirconium. Here we have the rarely seen short lugs, so they vary in size from 51mm lug to lug to 47mm lug to lug, variable geometry to fit your wrist better. The watch is only 11.6mm thick. The case itself is 42.6mm in diameter. It is a beautiful work of art, as the DB28 won the GPHG Aiguille, just like the Tourbillon Souverain. It won the Best Picture at the Oscars of Watchmaking back in 2011. This watch came out a few years after that, with everything that's great about the DB28, but adding this scratch-proof zirconium coating. And then you can see zirconium blackening. Well, the similar blackening to the zirconium is rendered on the brass and titanium components of the movement. We have a blackened cap over the barrel bridge. We have Côte de Béthune laid down by abrasive wheels on the deltoid-style barrel bridge. You could see the edges of the bridges, mirrored anglage, very traditional. Black polished hands, modified brigade. Black polished full bridge for the balance, and black polished parachute shock protection springs and steel outboard. You can see all that traditional finish and finery. Satination on the wheels. Self-adjusting barrels, so you can't accidentally overwind. The twin barrels in manual 1 movement give it a 6-day power reserve. The balance is a patented design, a solid disc of silicon with a white gold, completely unbroken ring, so as much mass as possible localized in the rim of the balance to increase its turning force or moment. Now you can see there is a off-centered hairspring. It's actually two pieces shaped by hand and clamped together to breathe concentrically like an overcoil, with the flat profile of a flat hairspring. Triple parachute makes the watch more durable, but it also more rapidly recenters the balance staff inside its pivot jewels to improve chronometry under shock conditions. Now we have a spherical, half white, half blackened moon phase. You adjust it, and then basically you set it and forget it, as it has an adjustment interval of once every 1,112 years. Now, you may wonder, why a silicon wheel with a white gold rim? Well, first, to put as much mass as possible in the rim, which improves timekeeping, but also because it has very little reaction to hot and cold. It doesn't change the timing of the watch. There are little globes of titanium that are used for the hour indices. Those are black polished, and you can see the dial has a wonderful depth to it. De Béthune makes its own cases, dials, as well as movements, and you can see that the movement features a power reserve indicator on the back, along with a great deal of engine-turned perlage, mirrored anglage, and satination. There's a small power reserve indicator on the dial, too. It moves from this decorative jewel down to this decorative jewel as you wind it. So you can see that 6-day power reserve indicator via this little index on the dial side, and then there's a more elaborate power reserve on the reverse. It's an easy watch to wear. It's fairly light, and the floating lugs means you're going to find a perfect fit. Even on a smaller wrist, it's a good match, and it's thinner than you'd think. It actually will slide underneath the cuff. Now, De Béthune has made fewer than 3,000 watches since its founding in 2002, and it only makes about 200, 220 watches a year now. Remember, Journe makes about 900 to 950 a year, so that gives you a sense of the relative rarity right here. Okay, another independent, which is actually back and in business once more, is HYT. And I remember back in 2017, they really impressed me with the H0 case. Traditionally, the watches have been cool, but unwearably huge. Well, here we do have a 48.8mm case, but take a look. That's also the lug-to-lug dimension, not just the diameter. There are no lugs, which means the watch, which is big, wears small, which is great. On my wrist, it comes nowhere near the edge. And you can see, although it's thick, and there's no getting around that, it's a compact watch that wears comfortably. The H0 case, in my opinion, was the real breakthrough that this brand needed to make its technically audacious timepieces everyday wearable, and that's exactly what we have right here. Now, the watch is well, partially steel, but you can see most of the case is actually sapphire, which is more scratch resistant even than ceramic. So you can see the only parts of this watch that are going to take any hits when it's on your wrist are going to be the sapphire parts, which is going to shield it from scratching. There's a lot of intelligence to the design. We have a titanium deployant clasp, and then this little push button that allows me to incrementally adjust the fit. So a smart design right there. I haven't seen that on too many watches. We also have a little scale outboard, so if you wish, you can read the fluidic time display in 24-hour format. Now, it is a regulator dial, as we have our hours, minutes, and seconds separate. There's also a power reserve indicator here. You can see it between 2 and 3. And as you wind the 65-hour power reserve, it gradually transitions from black to orange. Now, you'll appreciate that the watch actually has a shockingly good lume, which I'll demonstrate here. And it is quite possible to read the watch when the lights are out. You can see the little meniscus between the two immiscible liquids. One liquid is actually clear, one is black. And so the meniscus between them, they can never mix, gives you the hour. But because you only have a limited scope, when you reach the end of the travel, this regulator also becomes a retrograde, and the hour display retrogrades rather violently for something based on fluid. And you can see as we return to the light that this is how the system works. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So it retrogrades every 12 hours, and every 24 hours it retrogrades 2 times. So that's how that works. Now you can see that the movement uses 2 bellows that contain the fluid. They're moved by a cam. It is a conventional Swiss lever escapement. You can see that this 25-piece limited edition uses a movement, the caliber 101, that was actually designed for HYT by Chronode. So HYT's subsidiary Pressiflex handles the fluidic elements, and Chronode handles the underlying mechanical mechanism. And once more, it is a manual wind with a 65-hour power reserve, and a very, very cool watch. I've often thought of purchasing one of these, and now that my Zin is off to its new owner via this weekend's Watch Femme for Ukraine Solidarity auction, I might have to pick a new watch. So guys, if you want to win my old Zin, it's actually up for auction this weekend on Eric Koo's Loop This website. It goes to charity, so I will not be benefiting. But please, if you'd like to own an EZM 1.1, go check out my old watch, my longtime companion, over at Loop This weekend. Now right here we have a cool watch that in my opinion is more appealing than a Chronometer Bleu. Chronometer Bleu retails in the $20,000 range and it's 39 millimeters. This, pre-owned, and along Unzona, Saxonia, or Saxomat, has a 37 millimeter yellow gold case and a solid sterling silver dial. So this is the Saxonia Auto, and it is the Saxomat caliber 921. And so that's what you're seeing on the dial where it says Saxomat. Caliber 921 has a 0 reset hacking second system, which I absolutely adore. This model was made from 1997 to 2005, so it's got a little bit of vintage appeal to it. You can see the case is satinated and polished. It is quite thin, only 8.3 millimeters thick, so as thin as a Royal Oak Jumbo, the extra thin. The dial is made of sterling silver with yellow gold hands, indices, and numeral. We have a little sunken sub-register for the seconds with a fired blue hand. And once again, 0 reset hacking seconds, so it automatically stops the balance and resets, making it easier to set the watch against a reference time. The movement is gorgeous, and the richness runneth over. First of all, you can see black polish on the case clamp screws, on the cap of the ratchet wheel, which is one and the same as the ratchet wheel, the swan's neck regulator, and the cap of the escape wheel. You can also see that in addition to those black polished screws for the case clamp and the rotor center and the fine adjustment, we also have fired blue screws. We have glasuta stripes across the bridges, and there's a lovely snailing or spiral satination underneath the rotor. So its bridge is actually double finished with an engine turned perlage, and then you can see inboard that snailing. We have a rotor that has a 21 karat center and then a platinum mask. Go ahead, check it out. Double hallmarks. We have platinum, and the rotor itself is gold. The rotor features satination, mirrored anglage, a chiseled frosted texture, and then the center is black polished. It is held together, gold and platinum, by fired blue screws, and then German silver is used to build the bridges and plates. So it's this lovely gold tinted material made from nickel, copper, and zinc, and it is the copper that gives it that golden hue. You can also see freehand engraving on the balance cock that is distinctive of Longa movements. And then, although there aren't a whole lot of bridges visible, you can see that the mirrored anglage on the side of each one is quite exceptional. A wonderfully slim watch. Again, I think this is a unisex option, as short as it is across the wrist. It looks great on a man's wrist, it looks great on a woman's wrist, and you can see there's no problem with the cuff whatsoever. Automatic winding, 21.6 beat rate, 46-hour power reserve, 5-position adjusted. A very, very impressive watch in every regard. Just beautiful. You almost wish you could wear it upside down. Let's bring in an affordable option or two. I always like to showcase watches that are the kind I would historically buy for myself. More affordable. Now, in 2021, Tag Heuer launched this in collaboration with Porsche. It is the Carrera Porsche Chronograph. So we've got a 44mm steel case with the Carrera style lugs. We've got a ceramic tachometer style bezel. You can see this is Tag and Porsche co-branded. We have what's described as an asphalt style dial, caliber H02, column wheel, vertical clutch, automatic, 80-hour power reserve, very crisp operation, sunken subs. You can see chronograph minutes, chronograph hours, constant seconds. We have a little date display. Take the lights off. Plenty of lume. All of the numerals and indices are well loomed on this watch. Turn it all over, you can see caliber H02. This movement had a long gestation, but it was worth the wait. A good-looking, accurate 80-hour power reserve, vertical clutch, column wheel, Tag Heuer manufactured caliber, 100 meters water resistance. You better believe this is an all-aspect, full-function sports watch. You want to throw it on a different, more water-resistant strap, but it is a swimmable watch. There's a lovely stitching here that emulates what you'll find on the upholstery dashboard and steering wheels of a Porsche car, and you can see that the Porsche steering wheel has been recreated on the rotor. We have a full deploying clasp. It's a good-looking one. The strap is remarkably luxurious. It's definitely a cut above what you typically expect from Tag Heuer in terms of appearance, feel, and materials. Now, it's a big watch, so I probably wouldn't wear it on a wrist much smaller than mine, but if you're looking for something that's a budget alternative to, say, an Hublot Big Bang, a Royal Oak Offshore, this is definitely going to be that alternative. Well made and mechanically accomplished. It's also distinctive and attractive in appearance. A rare successful co-branding of watch and car. Now, let's say you want something a little bit more wearable. I can hear that. So here we have a model that came out in 2020. It's the Nekton Limited, or I should say Special Edition from Omega. Nekton, a marine conservation agency, and Omega, of course, contributing a portion of the sale of these to Nekton's cause. We have a 42mm steel watch. It's the latest generation of Diver 300 meter. 120 click bezel, but there's a change. Instead of a ceramic insert, we have a laser ablated grade 5 titanium insert. Now you can see the dial is a bit of an inversion of what we typically find on these Diver 300 meters. Most of them feature polished ceramic dials with little recesses that are laser etched. Well, here you can see that the basic dial is actually matte, and then the waves are raised above the dial, and then they're polished. So it's a very special look. It's a very special and distinctive look that morphs dynamically in the light. You can see that well. Now, the watch has a solid case back, which actually makes it a little bit thinner than the standard Diver 300 meter. And though you can't see it underneath the sticker, by the way, this is a very fresh example. The watch, of course, has that little Nekton submersible atop the seabed. Caliber 8800 inside. This is the 8806 because the Nekton Edition is a no-date dial, so 8806 is the no-date version of the 8800. Coaxial master chronometer, anti-magnetic, shock-resistant, stop seconds, and of course a 55-hour power reserve, 300 meters water-resistant helium escape valve, and the watch has got a extension for divers, but it's also got a push-button slider, so you have that all-or-nothing fold-out dive extension. Then you have 9.6 millimeters of push-button incremental adjustment, which gives you the ability to size it that you wouldn't have if it were just a fold-out dive extension. A real good-looking piece, about 13.5 millimeters thick, so not bad by modern Omega standards, and as you can see, 50 millimeters on the nose across the wrist, so it does wear well on a wrist of about 15 centimeters circumference and up. Now, if you like Omega, but maybe you want something that's more of an all-arounder, less of a diver. Well, here's a watch that came out in 2016, 41 millimeters in steel with a tungsten carbide, almost indelible fluted bezel. This is the Constellation Globemaster annual calendar. Now you can see it reprised as the Pie-Pan Constellation design, beloved of vintage Omega collectors, emblematic of the 1950s. We have lovely blued hands logo and individual indices. This blue on silver white dial is gorgeous, and you can see the so-called Pie-Pan fastening present and correct. We've got a annual calendar system that works with a date and a month, and we do have a quick set system that allows you to quickly and easily set the date, and then in the other direction, set the month. Now, this being an annual calendar, you only need to adjust it once during the jump from February to March. The watch is 100 meters water resistant. You can see the observatory on the back to remind you that the Constellation back in the 50s used to be an observatory chronometer. The movement inside, twin barrel, 60-hour power reserve. It is the 8922. It's actually a little bit more deluxe than what you just saw. The 8806 and the Seamaster only has a 55-hour reserve and 1 barrel. This has a 60-hour reserve and 2 barrels. The 2 barrels give you a bit more power reserve, yes, but also more even torque release, so there's not a big balance amplitude drop-off after 24 hours. The balance is on a full balance bridge with a free-sprung index for shock tolerance, anti-magnetic escapement, anti-magnetic silicone hairspring, a lot to love right there. And the watch is luxurious. There's no mistaking this for a watch that could be your dress timepiece, but being steel with a tungsten bezel, automatic winding, well-loomed, and 100 meters water-resistant, you do have other options with this watch if you put it on a water-resistant band. Now, taking a quick look at the lume, it is substantial. This almost could be a sports watch just by its luminescence, so that's why I call this an all-arounder rather than a dress watch. Now, this might have been the best new watch of 2019. Cartier redesigned the Santos de Cartier back in 2018, but I felt what was missing was a more overtly sporty version with a darker dial and some lume. Well, for 2019, Cartier corrected the record. Now, this watch is very easy to wear. It's only 9.6 millimeters thick. From end to end, if we just include the lugs, it's about 47.5 millimeters, and it's about 38.5 from side to side, not including the crown and the crown guards. There are a lot of smart features here, but above all, it's very attractive, it's well priced, and as you can see, it fits superbly on a smaller wrist. Now, each one of these came with a bracelet as well as a color-matched blue leather strap, so you get both. Now, the fun thing here is that there are two features that were exceptional then and remain exceptional now. One is the quick switch system. So you use this little retractable trigger that unlatches the buckle, or I should say unlatches the bracelet from the lug, and it works just like a car seatbelt buckle. So if you want, you simply stick it right back in. But maybe before I do that, I should show you how the SmartLink system works. SmartLink is brilliant. I'm gonna have a little bit of trouble getting this in focus, but you can see that there are these little tabs, and you push them down, and they're spring-loaded, and when you push them down, the retaining bar for the bracelet actually pops out. So you can remove these links and rejoin the bracelet together using only your fingernail. I'm not sure that I have quite enough fingernail to show you how this works right now, but actually, let's see, maybe I do. There we go, just like that. So you pop that little bar out, you withdraw it. Now, here's the cool thing. It can't withdraw all the way, so you don't need to worry about losing the part. Once you've withdrawn it enough, it pops the bracelet open. Now you just remove the next bar, pull that link out, stick it back together. That's how you size it. There's no ropiness, there's no excess play. You would never know there are so many small moving parts, or that this bracelet can be broken up into its components. You get plenty of removable links here. You can see there are plenty of removable links, as both sides feature the SmartLink system. The reverse of the watch advertises 100-meter water resistance. What you don't see is that there are anti-magnetic features inside the case. The watch has a manufacturer movement, automatic winding, hacking seconds, quick set date, and a 42-hour power reserve. It is a Cartier manufacturer movement. The dial is a lovely blue metallic gradient. I'll just take the bracelet off altogether here, right? Why not? And the dial has a blue metallic gradient. The numerals themselves are actually small slivers of metal that are polished and applied, so it's a very upscale look. And unlike the 2018 version of this watch, here we do have enough luminescence for you to gauge the time. So this is an all-around sports watch. Make no mistake, water-resistant, fairly shock-tolerant, anti-magnetic, automatic winding, well-loomed, and with a full steel bracelet. You can see that this timepiece is easily the best sports watch you can buy used for under $7,000, and it's a great brand to boot, Cartier. If you want to spend a little bit more on your sports watch, here's a model from 2005 that I really like because it's a combination of the best of both worlds. Panerai sports watch style and fit are second to none. They are masters at making big watches fit small, and if you want a sports watch, one could argue that Panerai has only ever made sports watches. So this is the PAM 190. It's a 1,000-piece 45mm stainless steel wire lug rod mirror with an 8-day power reserve. It has a lovely sandwich dial, which is a sort of gray-brown. I would describe it as somewhere between tobacco and black. Get a little bit closer, you can see that the hands are rose gold plated to let you know this is an upscale model. Now, when I say sandwich dial, I mean there is a stencil with the numerals and the indices, and it's placed on top of a solid disc of lume, which gives it a cool depth effect when the lume is visible. And you can see even the small second sub-register is loomed right here. And the reason I say this is the best of both worlds, because this watch, which is 100 meters water resistant, has a JLC-based movement in it, and the power reserve is on the back, which is one of the updates that Panerai made to this master 8-day movement. They actually added some jewels. They moved the power reserve to the reverse side. It's on the dial side of the JLC. So they preserve that Panerai uncluttered aesthetic, but then they also give you the JLC movement, which is beautifully executed to generally a higher standard than you'll find on a Panerai movement. Blued screws, anglage. We have Côte de Genève, which are particularly broad here, and you can see there's engine turning on the base plate. Now turn the light out, and one of the quirks of this watch is that the power reserve index, and only the index, is loomed on the reverse side, and the watch is exceptionally long-legged. The power reserve is rated at 8 days, but in reality, I've seen these run close to 10 before they actually stop. Another feature you won't find on too many wire lug rods is the hacking seconds. That's another JLC feature that got ported over to the Panerai. Now, if you like these watches and you've heard about strap swapping on Panerai and you want to experiment with that, the way this works is that there are two little anchor screws on each side. You use your tool to remove those two screws and the lug pops right out and then it separates into two pieces. Then you throw on your OEM or aftermarket accessory strap. And they always say, new strap, new watch in the world of Panerai, so you can continuously refresh this one and update it simply by buying new straps for it periodically. And as Panerai watches go, this one's fairly flat. You can see it has a sloped case flank. It's fairly low lying, and I could recommend this watch for a wrist as small as 15 centimeters in circumference. Now, if you want to go way upscale with your sports watch, and money is no object, consider Greubel Forsey. Launched for $2,000, this is the Balancier S Titanium. It is a 100-plus meter, full grade 5 titanium, 3-day power reserve sports watch. You can see that it does feature a surprising amount of luminescence for a Greubel Forsey. Now, they made 18 of these. They are immaculately executed. They're titanium inside and out. So you can see the blued elements inside. When you see blue inside a Greubel Forsey watch, you know that is titanium. They have a process for bluing titanium. The bridges and plates of the movement are made of tie. You can see that we have the barrels stacked, and it's a wonderful piece of theater as you wind them up. There's a power reserve indicator. There's a lovely three-dimensional bridge underlying the motion works that sets the hands. You can see the balance is absolutely enormous and free-sprung with recessed bolts. We have a free-sprung architecture and then an overcoil inboard, and this allows the watch to keep excellent time in any position. The watch, of course, features a case back as beautiful as the front. We have these lovely raised black polished channels along the edges of the blued titanium centers. We have golden chaton used to fix the pivot jewels, and that is a nod to the pocket watch era of watchmaking in La Chaux de Fonds, where Greubel Forsey is based. Remember, 18 of these were made for 2020. This is a scarce watch. Greubel Forsey only makes about 100 to 150 watches a year. The finish, the execution, materials, the design, it's all blue sky, cost no object, with fantastic attention to detail. The watch is 45 millimeters wide, but then it's also only 45 millimeters from lug to lug. This is a summary Greubel. You can see how short it is across the wrist. It's nowhere near either edge of my wrist, so you could throw this on a man's wrist, a lady's wrist. I think it would fit even on a wrist as small as 13.5 centimeters. It would look big, and in fact, it is big. But being tie inside and out, plus sapphire and rubber, it wears feather light for what it is. And again, you're getting Greubel Forsey's fit and finish. You could see the mirrored anglage on the edge of these bridges lighting up as I flick it through the light. You can see that there are recesses which have been satinated. The hands have been black polished. You can even see that the interiors of the wheels have been finished. This is as good as it gets in the world of haute de gamme. Now, let's say you want a titanium sports watch, but you want something a little bit more traditional. Well, Audemars Piguet's got you set. Debuting just last year, this is the Audemars Piguet Automatic Flying Tourbillon, 41 millimeters in diameter in grade 5 titanium. That is lighter than steel and harder and more scratch resistant than steel. It has a lovely slate gray dial with a frosted surfacing, white gold hands, logo, and indices. Screw down crown, 50 meters water resistant. It's actually surface swimmable. And as you can see, it's well loomed and automatic winding. It is a sports watch. We have a tourbillon, which you can see is a flying tourbillon. No upper bridge to block your view. The case, the bracelet, the bezel, all of it immaculately hand satinated and polished, right down to the little polished ends of these intermediate links that hide in between the primary links. And you can see this is Audemars Piguet, so removable links are fixed by screws, no pin sleeves here. The watch is gorgeous, and you can see the combination of bevels and satin and the sharp breaks between the different focal planes. The dial, most unlike conventional Audemars Piguet tapisserie, which sets this one apart. You can see there's even a polished ring outboard to create a metallic defined sector dial. Turn it all over, and you can see the movement is, well, it's everything you would expect from Audemars Piguet. A caliber 2950, as a 65-hour automatic winding power reserve, and you will note it is properly sized to fit inside of this case. An absolutely gorgeous watch, a watch that is impossible to forget. It's also a decent match, not for a small wrist, but I would say a medium-sized to large wrist. Easy to wear, extremely comfortable. The watch sits flat, flush, super light, slides underneath a cuff. It won't give you any problems whatsoever. This watch is agreeable, I would say, on a wrist of 16 centimeters, maybe 15 centimeters circumference, because let's not forget there is a little bit of flare with the Royal Oak, and it does fight just a little bit. You can see how it flares out, so it's not purely defined by the length of the case edge to edge. It's more of the flare of the bracelet. So consider a 15 centimeter circumference wrist the minimum, but remember, in terms of lightness, it wears like a 40, maybe even a 39 millimeter steel watch. Okay, now we have the Patek Philippe 5270 1R perpetual calendar chronograph, 41 millimeters in rose gold, really red gold. It's incredibly intense. This is a model that came out in 2018 alongside the 5270P. Now, the most beautiful aspect of this watch is the use of black discs for the day as well as the month. It is a very cool combination of black and rose. Again, it's more red than rose. The case is dramatic with stepped lugs. You can see they're fluted in their profiles. We have a bracelet that's designed for a perpetual calendar, as the pusher adjusters for the calendar have through fittings that allow you to access the quick sets even when the bracelet is in place. It's not a thick watch, and you can see it has a little concave bezel profile to pare down the apparent mass. The watch is a perpetual calendar, so no adjustments until the year 2100. There's a tachymeter outboard, and you can see in good taste the watch isn't loomed, so the hands, the indices, they're more graceful and uncluttered. We do have a Patek Philippe manufacturer movement on the reverse side. As you can see, 29535 PS Q. Of course, it's got the perpetual calendar system, a black polished column wheel, and a fully jeweled lateral clutch with the jewels actually set in golden chaton. Manual wind, 65-hour power reserve, column wheel, lateral clutch, stop second, overcoil hairspring. Not a silicone in this. The upscale Patek Philippe watches, the flagship pieces, use a Ferris handmade Piguet overcoil. We have an instantaneous jumping minutes rack, and you can see there's a little sort of rack and snail type device. It's got a paw-on-to-paw wheel, and this is a wonderfully crisp column wheel. The mechanism, of course, is all integrated, so the watch manages to be quite thin. It's 6-position adjusted, and it has a free-sprung Gyromax style regulator. You can see the edge of every steel chronograph component and brass bridge has a mirrored rounded shine, and then we have black polished screws with chamfered slots and circumference, as well as a black polished cap to the column wheel. The watch wears well, though it is a little bit large at 41 millimeters with these solid end links to the bracelet. I would say you want to have at least a 16 centimeter circumference wrist to wear this. Not because it's thick, it's not. It will slide underneath the cuff, but because it is quite broad, and you can really see that well from over the top. It's pushing right out to the edge of my wrist. It's got a 5-link bracelet that's beautifully integrated, and you can see it's actually quite a good thing to own. If you're in a place like Miami or LA where a watch like this is the correct style, it also has ventilation between the links for that hotter weather. And you can see how this bracelet is actually designed to breathe quite well. A handsome watch, a substantial one. Hold it in the palm and you can just feel how hefty and substantial it is. It's massive, like a boat anchor. You can feel where the money went. It's incredibly gratifying. Finally, we pop up the Freak 28,800 vibration per hour diamond heart. Now, this was an individually numbered 99-piece platinum limited edition that came out in 2005. And for once, the diamonds are not just superfluous style. They actually describe what's happening inside the watch. This model used a Ulysse Nardin designed synthetic diamond escapement. So it's a double direct impulse escapement. You can see the two escape wheels as well as the impulsed surface, made out of diamond, so they are unlubricated and long-lasting. Now you can see we have diamonds that double as the hands. This is the Freak after all, so it's a carousel, which is like a tourbillon, but it is a fully mobile carriage that has a separate drive component than the escapement. So on a tourbillon, the carriage and the escapement are driven by the same power source. On a carousel, they have separate drives, which is why I can unlock the bezel of the watch, and the bezel is used for setting. My nails aren't quite as long as they were before I manicured them, but you pull up this little bezel lock right here, and that allows you to use the bezel to set the watch. This baguette movement acts as the minute hand, and then underneath that, also paved with diamond, is the hour hand. So that's how that works. It's free sprung. It has an anti-magnetic silicone hairspring of Ulysse Nardin's own manufacture, and as the name suggests, it beats away at 8 beats per second. Now, the watch has a 7-day power reserve, and you actually wind it using the case back. You turn it, and it's 7 days. You can see the single enormous mainspring inside. This idea originally pioneered by Carole Forestier-Casapi and implemented by Pierre Gigax and Ludwig Oxlin at Ulysse Nardin. So you can tell by the coiling of the spring effectively how much energy is in there. The case is all platinum. It's actually fairly thin in profile. You can see the bezel as well as the lugs are paved. And this 99-piece limited edition features individual numbering via a plaque recalling the Ulysse Nardin marine chronometers of the 19th and early 20th century. We have a full deploying clasp here, which you can see is UN branded, polished, and media blasted. And it's got a twin trigger release, so it will not pop open accidentally. The watch is broad, but it's not thick. However, all in platinum, it is massive, and it's very impressive. This is actually upside down right there. This is how you wear it. You wear it with the 28/8 lock looking right at you. It's broad across the wrist, so I wouldn't wear it on a wrist smaller than 16 centimeters, but you can see I speak no lies when I talk about the thickness of this watch. It is low slung, close coupled, and easy to slide underneath the cuff, but again, very wide across the wrist. Reach out to tmosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details of anything you saw today on this program.